Hi, Dorothy here. Just to let you know, today's podcast is just a few little funny episodes which I thought you might find amusing. Hope you get a bit of a smile or maybe a laugh. So enjoy. So my first one was I drove my car into the back of the factory in Parnell Street in Dublin where I was working. And I had a lot of sweets which I'd collected for a sailor work for children. They were kind of cheap sweet packets that had been donated. So when I went in, I just looked out a window and I saw all these little fellows around, I suppose, 5, 6, 7, opening the boot of my car and taking the sweets and stuffing them into their mouth. So I ran out after them. So they ran behind where the car park was into a building where they were living. And so I just ran and I said, boys, wait, this is very important. Somebody has taken sweets out of the back of my car. And I just hope they haven't eaten any because they're going to get very, very sick if they eat them. So the little shocked faces turned around and you could see the dye dribbling down their chins from some of these sweets as they dropped the rest and ran. So I just thought it was a kind of a funny little lesson, hoping it might put them off ever robbing a boot again. So that was one of my stories. Now, the next one I want to tell you tonight this is kind of peculiarly funny, but last March I went in to have a procedure done on hemorrhoids. Quite a simple procedure. So I said to the consultant, now I'm kind of old and I don't really want a general anaesthetic. But he decided differently anyway, and so he gave me a shot of a needle and the next thing I'm fast asleep. So I come to, I don't know how long afterwards, and I can hear this shouting and it's cardiac now. And I thought, oh my goodness, some poor devil is just after having a heart attack. Only it was me. So apparently my heartbeat went down to 12, which I believe I should have been dead. So I was rushed in to a theatre where a cardiac consultant just took another patient he was about to start on, and he was removed, and I'm put up on the table, and the next thing I have 8 people working around me. And of course I'm as high as a kite because I still have the anaesthetic in me. So I'm joking and I say to the cardiac surgeon, I said, oh my goodness, I came in to get hemorrhoids done. Is it a special offer day? Are there 2 for the price of 1? So I don't think he was very amused as he was rushing to save my life, and actually did a very good job. So I'm still here, and that's a year later. So anyway, that's one story. Another day, Maureen Abbott, one of my neighbours in Selbridge, was a scream, and she was a great pal. So she's walking up the road, and I'm down on my knees in the front of the house, and I'm painting the windowsills, the white windowsills. But the paintbrush is sticking like mad. I just can't move it. So Maureen comes in behind me, and the next thing she's roaring, laughing. She said, are you finding it difficult to move the brush? And I said, it's impossible. I just don't understand. And she said, well, you're using gloss on cement. It should be emulsion. So I thought, oh my God. Then I'm cycling my bicycle. This is out in Selbridge up this quiet country road. And I tripped and fell into the ditch. And the next thing, this car pulls up beside me and the window goes down, and it's my lovely doctor. And he says to me, are you all right, Dorothy? And I said, no, doctor, I'm just having a rest in the ditch. Anyway, I don't know whether he was amused or not. Anyway, then we have another story. We had a lovely curate, a youngish man, and he wouldn't be a man now that'd be in the pub drinking every night. But anyway, so the reason I'm saying that is it sort of follows up on the story I'm going to tell you. So he got a house call to go out. This man apparently was very ill, and the wife asked him to come out, give him the last rites. So he went out to the house anyway, and there was a lot of problems going on. So the wife insisted on giving the priest a glass of whiskey. So he said, I'm not really a drinker. He said, she said, look, just have that, and there's a bottle of soda. Put that in, because she said, you're going to be here a while and it'll keep you calm. So the more he tasted the whiskey, the worse it got. So he kept putting the soda from the screw top bottle in. So eventually, anyway, he got through. and managed to down the whiskey, and the soda bottle was practically empty. So he went out and everything was done with the man, and he left and he got into his car. He doesn't know how he got home, but he got in the door and his mother happened to be staying. And when he opened the door, she was standing at the top of the stairs and he collapsed on a heap on the floor. She said, "Oh my God, what's happened here?" So with that, the phone was ringing and it was the wife from the house in a dreadful state. "Oh," she said, "did father get home yet?" So the mother said, "Well, he did, but he's in a terrible state." "Oh," she said, "I didn't realise my husband had filled a soda bottle with poachine." So father now had a whiskey and a half a pint of poachine. So you can imagine how he felt the next day. So then we had another story about the parish priest who was having trouble with his nerves and he went into hospital. So anyway, that evening he came home, the younger priest was doing the garden, and in comes the PP, very agitated, and a big white paint mark on the side of his car. So the curate said, "What happened, Father?" And he said, "Oh, don't talk to me." He said, "I'm on the bridge coming in here to Selbridge, and a fella driving on the wrong side runs into me." So he said, "I just kept going." So the curate said, "I better go down and investigate. This is very strange." So the curate goes down to the bridge and he sees sitting on the centre of the bridge this road marker and nobody with it. So somebody points to the pub and said, "He's in there." So anyway, in goes the curate and there's a man sitting up at the counter and he's shaking from head to toe having a drink. He looks and he says, "Oh, no, not another priest. Oh, no." He said, "Oh, no." He said, "There's one after knocking me off my paint marker in the centre of the road and accused me of driving on the wrong side." So anyway, the priest nearly died, so he goes back and he discovers that the PP had been given Valium, although he had gone into hospital on Librium, and they're two very strong antidepressants or something like that. And of course, they interacted with each other, so he shouldn't have been driving at all. But anyway, thank God, there was nobody hurt. But it was kind of ironic, the poor man painting the road, getting caught like that. So anyway, yeah, there's lots of other little stories. And so I must tell you a story about this Irishman, an elderly Irishman I met in Fungirola. Now, I'm not going to give his name, obviously, but he was an absolute character and always carried his money around in a little plastic bag in his pocket. So anyway, I got talking to him and he was saying he was finding it very hard to live because he didn't get his Irish pension. So I said, "Oh, that's dreadful. We'll have to see about helping you out with that." So anyway, I said, "And how are you managing?" And he said, "Well, I'm drawing interest of my savings and that's keeping me going." So I said, "Well, have you a lot of savings?" And he said, "Well, yeah." He said, "I have a good few thousand, And I said, "Why are you not using that to live on?" And he said, "Well, I'm actually keeping it for a rainy day." And I said to him, "But do you know it's lashing?" So he looked at me and he started laughing. But he was such a funny man. And then when I did get him fixed up, after great luck with an Irish pension, he took me out for dinner and we're in the restaurant. And this man now is, completely a character. So anyway, the waiter comes over to take our order in the restaurant and he takes out his little plastic bag of money from his pocket and he says to the waiter, "I want the very best for this lady. You have no idea what she's done for me." And of course the waiter is looking at me in a state of puzzlement. Now, what could she have done for him? And I was so embarrassed, but I couldn't stop laughing. But he was so delighted, to get his pension fixed up. And he realised then the day had come to spend the money. And he did it and he was very happy and he was totally sorted after that. So I thought that was a nice little story. And then I was doing a play in the Abbey Hall in Selbridge and it was called The Loves of Cass Maguire. It was written by Brian Farrell. And I was playing Cass and she's a poor, unfortunate woman who lived all her life, slaved in America, worked and sent home the money to her family so that when she retired, she'd have a home to come home to. But in fact, when she comes home, the brother has this marvellous news for her, he thinks, to tell her that he's found her a brilliant nursing home. And she said, oh my God, I've sent home all that money for all these years. And he said, yeah, so that's what we're using. So anyway, during the course of the play, she was having little swigs out of her bottle in her pocket, and I had a couple of jokes to tell as the character. So I noticed at the back, I was in the Abbey Hall in Selbridge, which is a gorgeous little hall along the side of the banks of the Liffey. And the door opened and I could see in the distance the parish priest had just walked in. So I'm about to tell this joke, but you're on the stage, you've got to keep going. So the joke was, a guy emigrated to America, and the father lent him the money to go. So after about 2 months, the father gets a letter, and he says, hi, Dad, I'm doing well, I've got a job. That's a feather in my cap. So the father looks, not a penny in the envelope. So another month elapses, and another letter comes. Oh, he said, I've got the job, and that's a feather in my cap. Still not a penny in the envelope. So then, after 2 more weeks, another letter comes, and he says, I've got promotion. Isn't that a feather in my cap? So the father gets out his pen and his paper, and he sits down and he says, dear son, stick the 3 feathers up your arse and fly home. It's looking like I'm not getting my money back. So I just thought, oh my God, here I have to shout this very vulgar joke out. Anyway, I don't know whether the priest laughed or not because he was gone after that. So that was some of my experience. Oh, then another one. I was in Lucan and the ICA had inveigled me into doing a play, and it was 5 nuns. And this is back in the 70s. So the nuns were all dressed in black habits and white cardboard thing, and then the veil on top. So we're walking up the town to do this play in the cinema. And we had to get dressed up in somebody's house because there was no changing room in the cinema. So on the way up, I, an inveterate smoker, light up a cigarette. And there's people coming, elderly people walking down the road, and they see this nun in full habit with a fag in her mouth, and they nearly collapse. So I just thought it was so funny because you wouldn't be seeing nuns smoking on the road. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed those couple of little stories, and I have some great new ones coming up, all about my life with Noel and the children and Selbridge, and the fun we had and people we had staying. So I'll say goodbye for now and look forward to linking up with you again. Bye-bye.